let's look at this little orchestration form. Because say we have, we'll go to some, I'm gonna actually delete this to give us some space. I have some like random little sketches here that I just quickly threw in. That's super simple, but we're going to use them to showcase some of these ideas. So let's listen to this. Okay, so say that's a loop, and we want to turn this into a track structure, right? What can we do? So let's look at this little cheat sheet that it's in. You can download this, by the way. One of the things we can do just to get out, because again, I want to recap everything as much as I can. And I'm going to repeat a lot of the same things, but just bear with me because all of these things are very crucial. We want to break out of this loop stage as soon as we can, whatever it takes. It doesn't have to be perfect. We just want to break out of it. We just want to get out of that place where it's a loop. And the first things we can do, that's very easy, even if you're not feeling inspired, is that you can either reduce or you can augment. So by reducing, I mean you can extract certain parts of your loop, certain elements, or you can simplify things. So, for example, if I look at this, I can think, okay, how can I make this augmented and bigger, which means in terms of dynamics or in terms of complexity. But that's like maybe what I would like to do if I want to move it in this direction. But this is not an intro. This is not how the track begins. Sorry. So the second question is then, how does it get here to this place? Because it certainly doesn't just begin here already. So that is when you can think, okay, how can I reduce this to a simpler version of the idea? So let's start there, because that can sometimes be an easier thing to do than to build on something, is to actually go backwards, because we have a lot of elements here. We have a staccato pattern, we got some chords, and we got a melody, albeit very simple. What we can do is that I can just take this sketch, put it into like the soft chords, and maybe just give it to, the usual violins. And I might also just then want to quickly change the modulation, because we don't want the bass to be as loud here. Because again, we want to think about the dynamics. We want it to grow. So a quick solution would just be to kind of drag down the modulation, make sure it never kind of gets too big. And then I could do the same thing with the modulation on the chords. Because again, we want to create growth. Each section has to be significantly bigger or smaller to the other. I don't want any track section personally to feel redundant or to feel that it doesn't move in a significant way. So a good exercise is to almost over exaggerate this a little bit. Because if you think about the track that I just showed you, the licensing track, every section has a very distinct purpose, right? It's either growing significantly bigger, adding strings and builds and drums and so on, or it's getting significantly smaller, adding in a big break to make room for the later. And then again, it's getting significantly bigger with like drums and guitars and synths and so on. So each track section has like a bold purpose that is very defined. And I'm trying to enhance that purpose as much as I can. But I try to do that in a very simple way by sketching. So here I'm trying to make a smaller, reduced version. So we can make a single ensemble arrangement, just strings and choir, for example. In this case, I've just done just strings. And I've also taken away the ostinato. So I've gone down in terms of, I've taken out one of the elements so we have less complexity. So we have created growth now between the two sections in both dynamics and complexity. And another thing we could do is to just present the chords. Sometimes that can be used to create a section that's leading into another section. It's just isolating the chords. So that could sound something like this. Let me open up Ridiculous again. You could just make a section out of the chords. That could work. That is going down in both complexity and in dynamics. Another thing we can do is to try solo melody over drone. So let's try that really quick. So note these down, or like, I mean, you already have this sheets that you can download. But I really recommend that you try to memorize these. So for example, I can take this melody and I can give it to, say, the flute. And we can just have a drone. And then from that, just introducing the melody over like an atmosphere, you are able to create an even more simplified version of your theme, just using the elements you already have in your loop and creating some kind of temporary intro. Now we can also create a piano reduction of the theme. So let me try that. And in order to give that more of context, this is also where I really enjoy using stuff from, say, Exosphere. I'll use a little boom. Let me see. Just use that one. Make sure it's not warped. Adding it in for each section. And then I'm going to add some kind of background texture. So I'll just go to tonal elements. Whoops. And I'll just go to D. And I'll just add some textures, and I can do a piano reduction. So when you create a drone, you want to just rest on the root of the key. So in this case, this is in D major. So you can which is also the relative major of B minor. So now I'm just creating drones on D. I'm just going to like create a repetition of this. And that's basically it. It's also called, let me see, an organ note as well. So now I have this texture, which is from Exosphere. I really like using that just to give context to ideas. It makes it sound better, which makes it more inspiring. So if I open up Ridiculous now, let's open it. I'll create a piano reduction. So this means I'll just take the essence of the theme, over the background atmosphere. And I might want to just use a click track as well. Try to get Ridiculous open so you guys can see. Come on now. No, we just missed it. Hold on. Try one more time. The only annoying thing is getting this to work sometimes. There we go. So there we have some kind of piano reduction. I just played over the second part of the track as well. Just reduced the theme into like the most basic it can be, just 2 notes over a drone. So that's a simple way that you can take any theme that you have and do that. So that was percent only, no, not only the chorus, but make it I can't even speak, single instrument reduction. So piano and synth. And you can recognize that's what I did in this other track earlier as well, the one I created earlier this week. I started by the song is opening, and also in the bridge it has a synth or piano reduction of the theme. And that's the only thing I did. I just took the theme, the chords, and I was just, okay, how can I arrange this just for synth or just the piano? How can I make it super simple over a background atmosphere? And that's what I did for the intro and for the break. So we've tried that now, and we have taken out the ostinato and any other embellishments and created a reduced version of the theme. Now the next thing we can do, is everything making sense so far? Are those sensible, specific things you can do with a loop you have in order to create something that's leading into it? If not, let me know if you have any questions. Now we'll address that. Because that's the first thing I would usually do personally, because it does help you just get somewhere. Because now you have a context of this first loop. You have something that's just not that loop anymore. You're leading into it. Now I have 2 more sections. And it's not great in terms of the different sections. But what I can also do now is I can take this staccato thing and I can give it to the piano just to smoothen it out a bit. And this is not supposed to sound amazing. It's just supposed to be a tool for me to flesh out a track structure. Now, the next step on this roadmap to kind of get out of the loop is to augment. So that would mean to create a bigger orchestration of your theme or create it more complex. We talked about complexity and growth. So we want things to either go up or down. So now we took things down a notch to create something that leads into our main loop, and now we're going to go further and see if we can augment it. So the simplest thing to do would be to use our sketch if you have various instruments or tracks that are chords but bigger and smaller. Like I did, I have different melodies that are like standard, just unison in octaves, and just flute. And those gives us different options for the same MIDI. So now I can take this into this octave here. I can maybe take it up an octave. And I might want to take this same piano and just increase the velocity a bit. And I can take these chords and bring it into the big chords. Bring the staccato over here. And I can also increase the velocity. So when you're augmenting things, you can augment based on instrumentation, so adding more instruments. That's one thing I did. I added like horns and choirs in this sketch template called Big Chords. You can increase the energy of the performance of individual elements, which means for things like piano and staccato, it means you would want to increase the velocity. So instead of this, you have and if you want to take that down for an intro, you go so you have to think of these as real instrumentalists and think about the energy of individual elements as well as the ensemble as a whole. So both of those are important. So that's the first things I would do, is to like move it into a different sketch that has a bigger instrumentation, and then maybe change the modulation is the second part if it's like sustained elements, because this is not really going to the top. So I might want to increase this a bit. And I'm going to move the bass, and I'm going to do the same thing with the modulation here, make it more powerful. And I might even like double it across all these different melodies. So now I've done a very simple augmentation of this theme. I haven't added a single thing yet, a single extra note. I've just modified the key blocks that's already there. So again, this is emphasizing why it's so helpful to have a sketching template, and why I do think of these as like building blocks of themes, making sure the melody is working, the chords are working, so when you're moving them around, you're going to get a good basic image. When quantizing, yeah, I'll go back and try to humanize it, because listen, this is not, none of this is going to be used in the final track. Usually when I'm not like streaming and I want this to be a smooth performance, because I'm on a laptop after all, I have my whole template under here. So I can just move this into my strings, my like first violins. I'll move this into like my horns, my choirs. So I use this as a guide for which elements I move things down into in my main template. So this is like the starting point. This is the sketch phase. And when I'm done with this, I'll just do like kind of create a folder like this and then just like collapse it so it's out of sight. And I'll just drag my MIDI down, or even most of the time I don't drag it down. Sometimes I do it and then tweak it. Other times I just re-record it completely to add more of a human touch. And that's when I start worrying more about the modulation, quantization, and stuff like that. Is that making sense? So now we have some kind of intro. We have a first part. And then we have this other part.